It's time to learn about ways we can go greener in the garden this spring. Carson is back to teach us. So, Carson, how can we become more eco-friendly when it comes to landscaping and gardening?
Well, Tracy, I'm going to pop some bubbles today. There's going to be a lot of disappointed people, but we're going to set the record straight on 4 very important categories. The first one, wildflower gardens. Now, I'm a huge fan of meadows. I love wildflower gardens in the right space, but new studies are showing that people who use wildflower gardens in urban settings, maybe your neighbor took out their front lawn and put down all these wildflower seeds, what we're starting to see is in those neighborhoods, increased use of herbicides. More people are spraying pesticides and herbicides because these guys spread via little seeds that blow in the wind. So they get into other people's lawns and people don't know what they are, so they start spraying them, trying to get rid of what they think are weeds when in fact they're wildflowers. Now, there is good news though. There's a better way to provide food for your pollinators, and we're starting to see more and more Canadian companies investing in this. Now this is a hydrangea that's already in bloom. And it's going to bloom all through the entire season. In fact, we have lilacs, we have hydrangeas. Companies like Better Blooms are actually starting to, and Bloomin' Easy, are putting investment into products that will feed your pollinators, the birds, the butterflies, all season long, but that they will not spread. These are made out of Canadian native plants that they've hybridized so that they will actually grow as landscape plants in your backyard.
So you're literally saying stay away from the wildflowers then, huh? Because they're spreading and people are then using the chemicals, and that's what we're trying to move away from.
Yeah, absolutely. Wildflowers in the right spot, but not in every spot. When you're in doubt, go with landscape plants that bloom because they will work just as well at feeding those creatures that you're trying to take care of.
Okay, good to know. I would like a hydrangea that lasts all summer long. What else have you got for us in terms of tips?
Well, I've got a bad one that I am guilty about myself. And as a garden center owner, this has been a real tough question for me. Bags and supplying recycled bags and how many of these recycled bags we actually have in our homes. Now for me, I'm up over 100 of these recycled bags that I get at every single store. But here's the problem, and a couple things you might not know. The black recycled plastic, this is the end of its life. It can't be recycled past this point. So that's a real issue because to make up environmentally the carbon footprint that it took to go into this bag, I need to use it just under 400 times. And I know I'm not. So that's not a good option. And I've got hundreds of these bags. So I've got to change my day-to-day use and have these with me and have them more accessible instead of just in the trunk of the car and hoping that I'll remember when I walk into a store. The other option for you, Tracy, and a lot of stores are starting to move to this option, is paper bags. Now, paper bags are great because they are decomposable, they will break down, but when they're made out of trees, we're now harvesting trees, which are our frontline defense on an environmental standpoint. So what I've started to do, and a lot of other retailers are starting to explore, are paper bags made out of alternative materials, things like bamboo. Bamboo, because it can be grown and harvested in a sustainable way, is a great alternative. So when you're faced with the question of should you just juggle your own groceries, going with one of these bags or going with one of these, always go the paper option.
Ooh, good tip, Carson. Okay, what have you got for us next?
For all those organic gardeners out there who are trying to feed their family with food that they've grown themselves, you have to know where the plants come from first. So here's a perfect example. This is a little mint seedling. This seedling is not organic. Even if I take it home and I put it in the garden and I only use organic products on it, the fact is this seedling was grown in a little plug that is full of synthetic fertilizers. So if that little plug goes in the ground with the seedling, as it continues to feed, it's pulling in all those chemicals, which means everything that I take from it, I'm actually now feeding to my family. All the chemicals. So again, if it doesn't say organic, do not trust it. And if you're able to, remove some of the soil, flush it out with a bit of water before you plant it. That way you know for sure that everything that this plant is in contact with is in fact organic.
I've often wondered how we figure that out. So these are really, really good tips. Have you got another one for us?
Yeah, so e-cars, a lot of bad news around lithium batteries, and yet lithium batteries are a big part of our day-to-day operations, especially when it comes to indoors, tool use, power tools, gardening tools. So there's a couple of things you need to know about these batteries to make them more beneficial for you. The first thing, you got to look for the recycling program on these. If you have a lithium battery that has a recycling program, that makes they take the components and they will reuse them. Also look for batteries that go for multiple tools. So in this case, this Craftsman battery powers the drill, but then I can take it out and I can use it in my leaf blower And then if I need to, I can take it out and I can use it in my string trimmer. The more flexibility you have in the lithium batteries, the more use you'll get out of them, which means that these will not end up in the recycling or end up in the landfill without a lot of attention being paid to them first.
You know, it doesn't matter if you're here in studio or if you're over at your greenhouse, you're constantly threatening me with that leaf blower, aren't you? Me and my hair. It's like you always pull it. Ah! Triggered. Carson, really good. It's interesting the way the information, it evolves every year and every season, so it's worth checking back every year to check in to see what we're doing right and what we might want to fix, because we really are trying to stay on this planet longer than longer than it looks like we will be, right?
When you're thinking about these products, use them as much as possible. No single use anymore. Make it last.
Make it last. Words from Carson.